Modern people have developed no long-term vision, so there is nothing to restrain them from plundering the planet for their own immediate ends and from living in a selfish way that could prove fatal for the future. Simply put, materialism, mindless consumerism, and environmental hedonism are exacerbated by a denial of immortality. Concerns about survival take on a linked double aspect. Survival, not just of our consciousness, but also survival of our species on Earth. Enter Sherri Mitchell. In the pages that follow, you will encounter her elegant vision of how we can restore our broken relationships with one another and with the Earth itself. Her vision is intensely practical in the tradition of her Penobscot ancestors, who lived in intimate relationship with the natural world every moment of their lives. Mitchell's observations are not mere philosophy or psychologizing. She has repaired her own divisions, which are generic to most Native Americans growing up in contemporary American culture. That is why her voice is so personal and persuasive, why her insights are so penetrating, and why she speaks for all of us, no matter what our racial and ethnic origins may be. Mitchell's Sacred Instructions is in the tradition of Native American wisdom, represented, for instance, in the Native Statements collected by T.C. McLuhan in Touch the Earth, a self-portrait of Indian existence, John G. Neihart's Black Elk Speaks, and similar volumes. Our culture's interest in Native wisdom is also reflected in the hundreds of photographs by Edward Curtis of North American tribes a century ago, which remain among the best-selling images around the world. A personal note: I have a considerable library dealing with Native American wisdom traditions, healing practices, and shamanic lore. A dozen of Curtis' photographs adorn the walls of my wife Barbara's in my home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. However, I came to admire Native American wisdom traditions only with great difficulty. I grew up in central Texas, about a dozen miles from Fort Parker, the site of a massacre of pioneer settlers in 1836 by a band of Comanche and Kiowa warriors. Several of the settlers were killed, mutilated, or kidnapped. Among the latter was Cynthia Ann Parker, 10 years old at the time. She was adopted into the Comanche tribe, became the wife of a Comanche leader, and gave birth to Quanah, who became the greatest leader of the Comanches. The Fort Parker Massacre was a seminal event in early Texas history, setting off decades of bloody combat on the frontier. The fabled Texas Rangers were formed as part of this struggle. Atrocities were committed on both sides. By the time the Comanche Wars ended, tens of thousands of whites and Native Americans lie dead. Fort Parker was reconstructed in 1936, according to its original plan near my birthplace. My brother and I often visited it as youngsters, climbing into the blockhouses and playing cowboys and Indians, imagining the events that took place there more than a century earlier. To put it mildly, I was not charitably inclined towards Native Americans while growing up. Indigenous wisdom was oxymoronic for me, but something shifted. The transformation in my attitude occurred during my educational process as a physician. Native American literature became a serious interest. I found in the Native perspective an affirmation of many discoveries in medical science. This included the evidence that spiritual factors, a sense of meaning, purpose, and direction, and a sense of connectedness with something that transcends the individual self and ego, however named, are important factors in health and illness. I developed a deep appreciation of a culture I'd repudiated earlier. That's why Sacred Instructions rings so true to me. André Malraux, novelist and Minister of Cultural Affairs in France, said, "The 21st century will be spiritual, or it will not be." Sacred Instructions affirms this observation. Mitchell shows how our broken relationships with one another and the earth can be restored. For this, and for her ancestors whose wisdom she embodies, we owe a great debt.
Introduction. We are living in a time of exposure, where the light of truth is shining into all the dark corners of our lives. As a result, all that has been lurking in the shadows is now coming into sharp focus. Some of the things that this light is revealing are deeply disturbing. Some are downright terrifying. This is causing many people to feel lost and hopeless, or completely overwhelmed by the amount of work that we are facing. Many recognize that this time represents a critical crossroads for humanity, a teetering point of choice that will determine the future.